Hello and welcome back to Indus News with me, Usman Lone. Well, we begin this hour with our top story, and that's from Afghanistan, where 30 civilians have been killed in an airstrike in Nangarhar province by Afghan security forces that were backed by US air support. Provincial Council member Shorab Kaderi says 40 others were wounded in the raid. He says the attack was aimed at destroying an ISIS sanctuary, but hit farmers near a field instead. The Defence Ministry in Kabul confirmed the strike but refused to share any casualty details. Earlier today, 20 people were killed in a Taliban suicide attack in southern Zabul province. Zabul's provincial governor told the media the bomb targeted an Afghan intelligence agency in the city of Galat. The blast wounded 95 others and damaged a number of buildings and houses in the vicinity. Meanwhile, Special Envoy to Afghanistan Zalmay Khalilzad will testify before the US House of Representatives. The committee issued a subpoena to force an explanation from Khalilzad over the cancellation of the Afghan peace process. Committee Chairman Elliot Engel says lawmakers will hear from the envoy in a classified briefing. Engel said he is glad the committee will have this long overdue opportunity to press for answers on the peace plan. The committee will hold a public hearing on the Trump administration's Afghanistan policy with Assistant Secretary for South Asia Alice Wells. Trump called off peace talks with the Taliban after Khalilzad said he reached an agreement with the group. Well, in a related development, a US watchdog has warned against a rushed peace deal with the Taliban that could leave millions vulnerable to recruitment by terror groups. In a report, SIGAR said any effort to reach an agreement between Kabul and the Taliban must include a plan to reintegrate fighters into civilian life. The US Special Inspector General for Afghanistan's reconstruction said for lasting peace, state-aligned, non-state and illegal armed groups must be demobilized. Inspector General John Sopko said not including those groups could deter the Taliban from demobilizing and reintegrating. Talks between the United States and Taliban were stopped earlier this month when Donald Trump cancelled secret meetings after a US serviceman was killed in Kabul. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan informs Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman about the worsening situation in occupied Kashmir. During a meeting in Jeddah, the two leaders discussed issues of mutual interest. The Prime Minister also condemned the drone attacks on Saudi oil plants and expressed Pakistan's full support to Saudi Arabia against external threats. Foreign Office spokesperson Mohammed Faisal said Khan has been in regular contact with the Saudi Crown Prince on the Kashmir issue. He said Khan will leave for New York to attend the 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly after the visit. Well, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called on India to respect human rights in the occupied Kashmir. Guterres told a media briefing he will continue to advocate for a peaceful settlement for the disputed territory. New Delhi's crushing curfew and total communications blackout in occupied Kashmir has now entered its 46th day. Meanwhile, Indian forces did not allow separatist leader Syed Ali Jalani to hold a press conference at his residence in Srinagar. Local and international media was stopped and forced to leave by the Indian Army. India has repeatedly ignored calls by the UN Secretary General calling India to stop violating Kashmiris' basic human rights.
I go on with a clear opinion that human rights must be fully respected in the territory, and I go on with a clear opinion that dialogue between India and Pakistan is an absolutely essential element for the solution of the problem.
The Indian opposition party has mocked Prime Minister Narendra Modi's mega Houston event, calling it sponsored. Congress leader Priyanka Gandhi says Mr. Modi is holding a rally in the US at times when the country is facing crumbling economic woes and grave unemployment. On Twitter, Priyanka said investors do not come through sponsored events abroad. She claimed that the Modi's government is not accepting the truth of a failing economy. Washington has called the attack on Saudi Arabia's oil installations an act of war by Iran. Talking to the media in Riyadh, the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Tehran has put the global energy supply at risk. Speaking to reporters on his 3-day visit to the kingdom, Pompeo said an attack of such a scale is unprecedented. His remarks came as Saudi Arabia put wreckage from the attack on display. Earlier, the Saudi military spokesman said the recovered weapons wreckage provided undeniable evidence of Iranian involvement. Responding, Iran has denied involvement in the attack and warned to retaliate to any US act of military aggression. Iraq refuses to join a US-led maritime security coalition aiming to protect commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Iraq's foreign ministry also criticized Israel's participation in the coalition. It said the Gulf security is the responsibility of regional countries. Earlier, the UAE announced it will join the maritime alliance. The UAE's foreign ministry said the decision was made to secure the flow of energy supplies to the global economy. Saudi Arabia, Australia, Bahrain and the United Kingdom have already joined the alliance. China accuses the United States of being behind the anti-government protests in Hong Kong. At a press conference, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zheng Shuang warned the US against supporting violent separatists in the city. Zheng Shuang said the US must stop interfering in the territory's affairs. Earlier, leaders of the pro-democracy movement appealed to US lawmakers to exert pressure on China. Israel's centrist Blue and White Party has rejected Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's offer to form a coalition government. The Blue and White Party leader Moshe Yaalon says it will not become part of a Netanyahu-led government. The Prime Minister suggested the arrangement after failing to win a majority in Tuesday's elections. Netanyahu says he's disappointed over the rejection. He says he's ready to hold talks with Blue and White Party leader Benny Gantz, but no party has a majority in Israel's latest parliamentary elections, its second since April. Increased Arab participation was a major trend in the second Israeli elections on Tuesday. Israeli Arabs' dislike of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and fear of his discriminatory policies motivated to get them to go out and vote. Many say they don't really like Arab parties because they're weak, but voted for them anyway just to force Prime Minister Netanyahu out. More in this report.
Like most other Israeli Arabs, Samir Farig had never thought of voting for an Arab political party before. The 54-year-old was an ardent supporter of the Israeli Labour Party, which is dominated by the country's Jewish majority. But all of this changed this past Tuesday.
We are living in Israel, and we have, I think, we pay everything. We pay all the taxes that they need, and we do everything that they ask us. But to get the rights and depend on the rules that he decide and his parties.
Samir is part of a larger political wave which saw Arabs returning to Arab political parties. Despite making up 20% of the population, Arabs complain of discrimination in Israel's Jewish majority areas.
We voted for the joint list so we can have members of the Knesset that are on our side and will give us our rights, not give rights to others. Exactly like the Jews, nothing different.
In Nazareth, Israel's largest Arab city, turnout was 15% higher than in the April elections. This should not be surprising, considering the kinds of threats incumbent Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has made against the Arab population. Last year, he passed a law declaring the country a Jewish state and downgraded Arab status as a national language. But it seems Arabs aren't willing to go down without a fight.
Well, staying with the Israeli elections, and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas says he would be against a new Israeli government led by Benjamin Netanyahu if he wins the election, that is. President Abbas is visiting Norway to express gratitude for Oslo's continuous support for the Palestinian people. These remarks come after Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki said they're ready to hold talks with any future Israeli leader. Al-Maliki said the Palestinian Authority believes in the implementation of the two-state solution for peace. Elections in Israel have left a deadlock between Netanyahu and his rival Benny Gantz. The narrow margin has raised prospects of a unity government in Tel Aviv. Well, I'll be back for more news from around the world after this short break. Hello and welcome back to Indus News. Now, Germany has hosted a meeting ahead of the upcoming international conference on Libya, slated for this November. The meeting was attended by representatives from countries including the United States, Russia and the UAE. After the event, the group exchanged proposals to resolve the Libyan crisis as soon as possible. The partners pledged to reach a political settlement because the UN support mission in Libya has proven ineffective. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said the efforts should focus on de-escalation and avoiding a proxy war inside Libya. Meanwhile, Khalifa Haftar's forces have hit Mitika airport 4 times over the past 24 hours, forcing it to close. Now, South Korea says military tensions with North Korea have declined significantly over the implementation of their summit agreements last year. Unification Minister Kim Yon-chul made the remarks during an event to mark the first anniversary of the third Inter-Korean Summit in Pyongyang. Kim said the military tensions on the Korean peninsula have decreased significantly because of concrete implementations of agreements. He said all hostile acts have mainly stopped and the chances of clashes between South and North Korea have plummeted. Kim also highlighted the opening of hiking trails near the border open to the public. Now, in other news, European Commission spokesperson Mina Andreeva says Britain has submitted some more proposals to amend the stalled Brexit deal. She said EU officials will discuss the proposals with British Brexit negotiators.
Just 42 days before Britain is due to leave the European Union, the two sides are locked in a game of brinkmanship, and attempts to reach a mutually acceptable deal could go down to the wire. The European Union has warned Britain is heading for a no-deal Brexit, as London's ideas for solving the contentious Irish backstop issues is still unlikely to unlock a deal. Now Britain has submitted new suggestions to the EU to resolve the issue.
We have received documents from the UK, and on this basis we will have technical discussions today and tomorrow on some aspects of customs, manufactured goods and sanitary and phytosanitary rules, and then the discussions will also take place at political level because Michel Barnier, the Commission's chief negotiator, will meet Steve Barclay tomorrow on Friday.
In London, the Supreme Court is hearing the final arguments to decide if Prime Minister Boris Johnson acted unlawfully by suspending Parliament. Johnson suspended Parliament after MPs passed legislation to block the prospect of a no-deal Brexit. If the court rules against the Prime Minister's decision, he may be compelled to recall Parliament earlier than scheduled.
New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Arden has met with Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in Tokyo. The meeting aims to strengthen the country's strategic partnerships. Up for discussion have been bilateral trade and regional issues, expanding the comprehensive and progressive agreement for the Trans-Pacific Partnership. PM Arden is on her first official visit to Japan. Earlier, Arden met Britain's Trade Minister Liz Truss to discuss the country's possible accession to the trade deal ratified by 11 countries last December. Now, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has apologized for wearing brown face makeup to a costume party in the year 2001. Addressing the image, Trudeau said he deeply regrets his actions and should have known better. The now nearly 20-year-old picture shows Trudeau with brown face skin makeup on his face and hands. With the elections just a month away, Trudeau has been grilled by the opposition, calling him unfit to govern. Trudeau expressed regret over the incident and has since apologized.
In 2001, when I was a teacher out in Vancouver, I attended an end-of-year gala where the theme was Arabian Nights. And I dressed up in an Aladdin costume and put makeup on. I shouldn't have done that. I should have known better, but I didn't, and I'm really sorry.
France and Italy have agreed on a new, fairer system to settle migrants across the European Union. The development arises ahead of an interior ministers' meeting in Malta next week. French President Emmanuel Macron and Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte have agreed to take in migrants saved from the Mediterranean. The two countries have sought to patch up bruised bilateral relations. President Macron says the European Union has not shown enough solidarity with countries handling first arrivals of migrants. He said the conflict cannot be solved at the expense of human lives. Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte said the migration issue must be seen outside of anti-European propaganda. Now, in other news, some of eastern Germany's communist-era concrete apartment blocks are being transformed into a giant art project. When the refurbishment began in 2018, the idea was to create something original that residents could identify with. More in this report.
A reminder of the communist era, the vast concrete Plattenbau tower blocks surrounding cities in eastern Germany are usually thought of as eyesores. A new urban culture project in the city of Halle hopes to promote social cohesion by turning architectural sins into monumental masterpieces. The grey Plattenbau blocks are made of prefabricated concrete slabs. They are often associated with poverty and tension. Artists aim to paint these buildings with bright colours and transform them into artworks to give the apartment blocks a look of life rather than squalor.
We have specific themes, as you can see on the buildings. There is a common thread that guides us through all the stories we can see here. In principle, the message is that nothing lasts, everything changes.
The often disdained Plattenbau complex overlooks the prestigious Franke Foundation, an educational institution dating back to the 17th century. Under the communist regime, the modern apartments were prized among high-profile party officials who called them bigwig blocks.
In the places where we paint, people generally don't have good social interactions with each other. When they look at our walls, even if they argue about it or don't like it, it is a good opportunity for people to approach each other and talk about the art.
The housing association responsible for the blocks will spend €7 million on the project to cover 8,000 square meters of wall space on 4 buildings.
Well, I'll be back with news from the world of business and sports after this short break. Hello, welcome back. Now in business news, France and Germany have agreed on a strategy to respond to the global economic slowdown amid international trade problems. But both countries differ over how fast to move. French policymakers want Germany to do more with its budget surplus to engineer recovery from the ongoing recession. In a news conference with Germany's ministers, French Finance Minister Le Maire says the strategy is based on 3 pillars. It includes reducing public debt, structural reforms and budget policies. However, Le Maire said a debate on the time frame for an action is still ongoing. Chinese smartphone giant Huawei is launching its latest high-end smartphone, the Mate 30. It's the first time the company will reveal its response to US sanctions. Huawei has kept a veil of secrecy over its plans to overcome the barriers imposed by the United States. The Chinese telecoms giant will showcase its Mate 30 range, which includes the latest 5G technology. The smartphone maker is caught up in the fallout of a trade war between the US and China. United States President Donald Trump added Huawei to a blacklist, barring it from exports in May. India's lockdown of occupied Kashmir is forcing the valley's apple crop to rot in orchards. Apples are the most popular produce and the largest crop of the occupied valley. Farmers and traders say the total clampdown has cut transport links with buyers abroad, plunging the industry into turmoil. Apples are the lifeblood of the occupied valley's economy, involving 3.5 million people, which is around half of the population of the state. The traders said the continuing lack of internet and mobile connections has paralyzed their businesses. Amnesty International has already reported the curfew and it's causing a humanitarian crisis, a shortage of food and a lack of health facilities. Well, it's 28 degrees here in Lahore, but let's take a look at the weather around the world. Well, that's all from me and the team here in Lahore, but I'll be back at the top of the hour with the headlines. Bye-bye.